Hey crafty friends, this is Chelsea. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to take a single page sketch and turn that into a double page layout. And the two pages are going to coordinate but not directly match or be a copy of each other. I have gone ahead and cut this out on my Cricut. I am following a sketch by Paige Evans, and I used her cut file to do all the piercing holes because yes, I am stitching. And I gutted some paper here so that I have a layer behind my white piece. I love that doily pattern. This is the Vicky Bouton Foundations paper. My intention is to do some mixed media on here as well as stitching. And then I am using the gorgeous For Always paper, which is the Bring Back My Pack special from Close to My Heart this month. And it has lots of gorgeous black and white patterns. These are awesome because you can mix them with anything. I love that they have some distressing to them. They're not super crisp, and they have a little bit of that toffee color shining through to give them a little bit of a distressed feel. I think these would also look really good with some really bright, vibrant colors, although that's not how I'm going to use them today because I wanted to use some of the stickers. So this is the sticker sheet that you can get along with the paper pack, and I liked some of the sayings, so I stuck with a more muted color palette. There are also two stamp sets that go along with this collection. And you know what? I already had both of them because this is a Bring Back My Pack, which means these came out the first time this collection launched back in 2013, and they were still in my collection, which is amazing. If you watched my stamp purge video, that they are still around, so you know they are good. Great patterns. I love that doily. It's so stained. I had to take it off so you could actually see it. But I am going to be incorporating them in helping me embellish my page and also creating some pattern paper for my page. I have my first stamp here, the chevron one, in my stamp platform because I want to stamp it several times. So I use the stamp platform for all of these images. I'm using Archival Black. Unfortunately, my stamp pad should have been re-inked before I did this, but it turned out okay. I just had to stamp it a couple of times, and now I had to reposition it, which is a little tricky. I didn't even clean my stamp, so I have ink on there. I'm trying to very lightly place it where I think it should go. Luckily, it worked out. So I just stamped it again so that I can get this strip of Desert Rose cardstock completely covered. I am using the light side of all the colors of cardstock that I'm going to use, and then I am trimming them down into 2 1/4 by 2 1/4 inch squares, and then I'm going to cut that in half into a triangle. So I want the triangles to fit pretty exactly on that stitched heart file, so I like my paper to go right up to the edge of where I'm going to be stitching so there's no gap between my stitching and my paper. Now I figured it would be easier to do any inking or splattering or anything before I did the stitching. So I took Speckled Egg Distress Oxide and I just put it onto my all-purpose mat, sprayed it with some water. Now I'm using a piece of like kind of heavier acetate. I couldn't find any packaging, like any just like plastic bag to use handy. So I grabbed this because it was close to me, and I'm not too happy with the result. It was a little bit too harsh of an edge, so I got more lines. I tried to soften that with some splatter just using my paintbrush. I should have just gone and looked for a plastic bag because I would have got a little bit smoother of a result. And you'll see here I do give up because I'm tired of like using my fingers, and I go to find a plastic bag because you just have better control with this. I mean, you can put the ink right onto your bag and spritz it that way too, but picking it up like this works. And I was much happier with that look. So in my mind, I'm kind of thinking of using like some paste or some glitter gel or something like that. And that's why I use the foundations paper because it can take all of that. But I am going to change directions and not end up using anything. So I really didn't need to use the foundations paper. I could have used regular cardstock. But I didn't want to add anything else because I was really happy with how it was looking. You can see all my little triangles here. I used Desert Rose cardstock, Scarlet cardstock, and Mist cardstock all on the light sides. And then I used some of that doily stamp, the floral pattern, the chevron pattern, and just stamped in black on those to get those different patterns. And now I'm using mist ink to just darken up those splatter areas. Once that speckled egg ink had dried, it was a little bit too light, and I just wanted to add a little bit deeper of a color in those areas, and I really like how that turned out. Just deepening up the color, kind of blending it out. I love how the blending brushes really diffuse out the color without any lines. Oh, and I should mention when I'm talking about the light side of the cardstock, if you're not familiar with the Close to My Heart cardstock, it has a true color side and then a lighter version of that same color. I love that option. It just gives you more flexibility when you're trying to match colors. And the reason why I used red in here, because the pack, like the stickers that go with this pack, don't have any red, but my photos that I'm going to use on my second page have red. So I just wanted a little hit of red in here. And then I'm going to keep it super simple for my photo. I'm just going to mat it with black cardstock. I didn't feel like adding any more color was necessary. And now let's jump over to the other view here. I'm going to punch the holes. So because this cardstock is super thick, the Cricut made marks in it but didn't really cut through. But that's all I need is marks. I'm using my piercing tool over a foam mat. And I am just repunching those holes to make it much easier for me to stitch. I am using DMC floss in black and a blunt needle, and I am going to use a chain stitch. So I'm starting off here in the corner, and I go up through one hole, down through the next, and then up through that same first hole, and then down through it. So I have like a double stitch. Okay, that one little section there is just 2 double stitches. Sorry, I'm kind of out of frame. It's hard to keep it in frame for you guys and close enough, and my thumb not in the way. And then I come up through the next one, and then I'm going to run it under those loops, kind of like through those loops that I created, and that's forming the chain, and then back down through that same hole. So I'm going to do this a few times, so hopefully you can see what I'm doing and not just look at my thumb. Up through the next hole, and then through those 2 little loops that I made there. I pulled it a little bit too tight, so it was difficult to get it through there. And then back down through that same hole that I came up through. Now the trick I found with this stitch is you need to make sure you're not pulling those loops too tight, because then when you go back to go under the loops, like right here, if you pull it too tight, then it's really hard to get under there, and you end up kind of scoring your paper with your needle. But you can see how these stitches are kind of like linked together. They're like links in a chain, and that's why it's called a chain stitch. I really love this stitch. Now it takes longer than a regular back stitch, but it's super like dimensional and nice and thick, heavy stitch. And I tried a few like back stitches just to start this out, and I didn't like the way it looked. I like how this one is fluffier and it kind of overlaps the edge of my paper. So here we are. You got to miss all of the stitching. I took it and like watched some movies and did some other things while I was stitching. This took me about 7 hours of stitching. So I like to do this as a way to relax. I never usually sit at my table and stitch because that's like work. So I take it and go watch TV and hang out with my family and do other things. But don't worry, if you don't like stitching, you could definitely skip that part and just make the heart out of the triangles. Just put them a little bit closer together. Now, honestly, with that gorgeous heart, I don't need a ton of embellishing, but I'm still going to add some. So I stamped that beautiful doily on white cardstock out of the mist ink, and then this is out of the Desert Rose. And you can see for the Desert Rose how I left the full doily, and then I also cut it down into a flower. I have one more flower that I did for this page as well, where I cut down that doily, and that is something that I saw on the Close to My Heart workshop that they have that is free for this paper collection. You can go over to my website and you can download that free workshop and make all the layouts. I will make sure to link that below, and they are gorgeous layouts. And the creator of this workshop actually showed the cutting out of these little flowers, and I thought that was a genius idea. Now this is a new Sprigs and Leaves die. I cut it out of Sage cardstock, and I love how in one pass you get all these different size leaves. They curve different directions. For someone like me who absolutely adores florals, I use florals a ton on my pages. This is brilliant. I cut this die twice for to do these 2 pages, and you'll see I have quite a few leaves on here. Some of them I ripped down so that they were shorter, not as long, and just tuck them everywhere here and there. I love this die. Now there is also a coordinating layering stencil, a layering stamp set, and also an embossing folder, all in the same design. I will have a video coming next week where I show you some cards made with this kind of collection, and I have so many different ideas for this. I think this is going to be one of my favorite products of the year because I love florals. I love a good leaf, and the fact that this has different sizes, they curve different directions, I just think it's super useful. This round circle is from the sticker sheet. And then this word heart I cut out on my Cricut with the Autumn in November font from DeFont. And then I used black offset and the mist glitter paper for the top part of it. And then there you can see my other little flower with some more leaves. These are just going to be tucked under that part of the title. I debated for the title if I wanted to say, "Oh my heart," or just "my heart." I am using the Simple Serif lowercase thin cuts, and the "my heart" just fit better there. Now I have melon pearls, bitty sparkles, and just regular sparkles. I love putting pearls and different size sparkles together. I think it looks really pretty, really delicate. And man, I wish I had bought more of these melon pearls. I'm going to have to go see if there's more in stock because I have used this melon color with, they match the desert rose. I've used it with the peach color, which I think I did last week. And they just look awesome with all those colors. It doesn't have to be just with melon. When I'm scattering gems like this, I always like to use a variety of sizes and either put them in like groups of 2 or 3. Sometimes I'll have a group of 2 and then the third kind of sprinkled over a little farther. Just kind of depends where the holes are in my little arrangements, and I kind of just go by feel. I'm trying to also keep in mind adding some to each of my little embellishment clusters, and the big cluster I did add 2 groupings. I used my Close to My Heart T ruler to draw some lines with a pencil just really lightly below the title there, and then I'm using my black Le Pen, my favorite journaling pen, to write in my journaling. I did go ahead and like do a rough draft on a sticky note. Whenever I just like write off the top of my head right on my page, I always regret it. Basically, I am just writing about, you know, that quote that says something about to have a child is like to have your heart walking around on the outside of your body. Just how I agree with that, and how much I love just watching Isabella grow. These pictures, I believe, were from 2021, so she is just a little one then. But it's fun to go and look back and scrapbook these pictures and see how much she's changed. I will have another spot for journaling on my second page, and I'm going to write more about her personality. And man, she was so chill. I miss those days. She was so chill and just like, yeah, whatever you want to do, just haul me along, give me snacks, and I am good to go. So after I was done, I like to go back and erase my lines. You just want to make sure your pen is dry. I was on the verge of my pen not being dry enough with this, but it was okay. It didn't really smudge. Now here is my second page. I didn't show you the whole process, but I will kind of talk you through what I did. So I love how this coordinates. I still get that kind of quilted feel in that bottom right corner with all the triangles, but it's not a duplicate. There's not also a heart on this page. So I repeated all the elements, right? I have my splattering. I have the ink blending. I did matte this with the Scarlet cardstock as well as the Scripty pattern paper. I have more photos and journaling that's going to go on this layout, but I'm going to use flip flaps. Once I put this in my page protector, then I can fit all the pictures. I was trying to narrow down what pictures because I was working with already printed photos. I just couldn't do it. So I'm like, I'm just going to use flip flaps and use everything. So you can see I used some of the same patterns, same size for my triangles. I have another one of those doilies that is done in the mist ink, as well as the same sort of flower design with the desert rose. I basically took all of the elements that were on the other layout and just brought them over to this page and arranged them differently, but it's still pretty much the same. The only thing that's really different is the matting on my photos. I have some pattern paper and then I used red instead of black. And looking at it now, all finished, I kind of wish I would have done black, but I didn't. And I think it works out okay in person. But you can see how you can take a design that is really meant as a one-page layout and transform it into a double page. You may notice I didn't do the stitching on the second page because I didn't want to put any more hours in. So I don't think it's really a big deal. It makes the left page stand out a little bit more to have all that stitching around the triangles. If you wanted to stitch the second page, you could. You just need to move the triangles farther apart so there was a little more gap between them, and then punch all those holes and do all that stitching. So I hope you guys enjoyed this layout, got some ideas of how you could translate the idea for a single page into a double page. Check out my playlist here if you want to see some more process videos, and I will see you next time. Bye.